So we take off after it, and I decide I'm not going because I didn't want to stay alone, but I didn't want to take off. What if it's hiding behind a big tree? So we go back and look at our lean-to, and this thing, whatever it is that we call, and people down our way do, called the poke gap or the poke holler monster, had ripped that lean-to into shreds. I mean, 6x6 size tree limbs are ripped into kindling wood, tore it all to pieces. Steel Coleman lantern cans of fuel are ripped apart and turned inside out. But we had one of those big orange coolers with a white lid on it. Trucks carry them around with water in them on work crews. You've seen those.
Yeah.
Well, we have one. We put stuff in it to try to keep it from freezing too much, not the opposite. And he said, look at that, Bugs. You know what that means? I said, what? He said, look. So I looked over in the cooler, and we had 2 packs of wieners in there, but the kind that wrap around themselves. I think there were like 40 wieners in a pack, and they were gone. And I said, oh my, this thing likes meat. He said, it must. It just took all of our wieners. He said, what else? I said, I don't know. I give up, Jack. What? What else? He said, look, it tore this lean-to apart. It'd take a bulldozer to do that. He said, but look at that lid. It didn't rip that lid off. It screwed it off the top. It's not only strong enough to tear up a well-built lean-to, it's smart enough and dexterous enough to take this lid off. We decided we're leaving the next day. Clearing, the sun came up, but it got warm. It probably got 40 degrees the next day by late morning. And if you're ever on a super cold, deep snow and see a light rain start falling and warmth, it's like a whiteout fog. So here we're carrying gear out of there. We go down and slip and fall half a dozen times in the snow. It's getting slick on the top. We finally slide down the last hill to the tunnel, which is where the railroad track is. If we walk this thing a quarter mile, we can get off at Olin Sizemore's house. The teacher I mentioned's dad lives there.
Okay.
He let us park our car that close, the cars. So we get there, Poke Gap Tunnel is right behind us, and a wind, 20, 25 mile an hour is coming out of it. Big temperature change going on. And little ice flecks are obviously breaking off in there somewhere. You can feel them hitting you. And I'm walking behind Jack. It's dark. And he's got a light stuck out. And suddenly, I thought, it's in my mind, he backed up and hit me with his pack right on my ice cold nose. And I shoved him. I said, go on, you hurt my nose. Like a little whiner child, I guess. And he said, look, Bugs, look. And I said, what? So I leaned around him, and he had his light aiming on an angle. And there in the middle of the tracks, 30 yards ahead of us, dim in the fog, not quite as white as the fog, but whitish gray. Something standing there. It's at least 10 feet tall. It might be taller. Eyes glowing red in his light. And it takes a step toward us. Whoom. Now, you can't see the railroad, but, it's wide and smooth.
Sure.
So I start backing up, and so does he. And we're back because there's high walls right before you go into that tunnel. You can't get out of there easily. This thing's walking toward us. He's got a light right on it, and we're backing up. And I said, Jack, I'm not going in that tunnel. I'm just not. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I was going back into a bigger than a half-mile long railroad tunnel. And this thing's walking toward us. And suddenly, it looked to me, and he said later it did to him too, like this thing winked at us. But that's not what it did, apparently, because it had turned to its left, our right before the high wall got real steep, and walked off the track and left. My guess is it looked like it winked because he got 2 eyes in the light. Suddenly, there's only one in the light. Looked like he winked at us.
Oh, wow.
The Poke Gap monster. That's the best sighting I ever had, probably.